welcome sports fans. This is an inside sports production of Football Talk. We're going to break down Week 6. Of course, as everybody knows, I do not do this show by myself. I am Charles E. Smith Jr. I'll be hosting, but I could not do it alone. I've got to have my main man in here, Chris Lardieri. You follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports, and you can also read his fantastic columns on footballnation.com. So let's go. Without further ado, here comes the man, Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's up?
Charles, everything's good. Your intros are getting better and better. I'm glad to see you're cashing the checks. I appreciate it.
All right, fantastic. So, as we said, at Chris L Sports, they can follow you on Twitter. And what's the latest goings on there at footballnation.com?
Well, like much of America, I got a bit of the flu bug this week, so I had to push back my column. Expected release date tomorrow. But what I'm going to talk about is what's ended up being one of the more controversial issues in the NFL in what was a pretty normal week. The booing of Matt Castle in Kansas City by the home team fans as he lay on the ground, clearly a victim of a concussion. Now there are conflicting reports. It was only a small minority of the fans at Arrowhead. Was it that they were really cheering Brady Quinn coming in the game? Were they sending a message to Scott Pioli? All in all, whatever the case is, and I'm sure it's just a few ruining it, like the old Chargers-Giants game at the Meadowlands with the snowballs. But, it just takes a few bad apples to spoil the whole bunch. I'm just going to talk about fans and how they kind of feel this sense of entitlement to just say what's on their mind. It's kind of a function of athletes making so much money and the season ticket holders having to pay so much more for their tickets. They feel like they have this right to just drill the players. But, I hearken back to when the Eagle fans cheered when Michael Irvin lay on the ground motionless. You expect that from Philadelphia. It's a rival. Those two teams essentially hated each other back then. And not that it's right, but to do it to your own team is kind of a head-scratcher. So that's what I'm exploring in this week's FN Follies column.
There we go. And, well, the Philly fans are notoriously tough. Remember, they did boo Santa Claus. So that's just kind of how they roll over there in Philly. But I think when I look at it, though, no, you should never boo a player who's injured. But when I look at the desperation they're feeling in Kansas City, if you're cheering Brady Quinn coming in to play quarterback, you are in dire straits.
Yeah, you really are, because, all you need to know about him is he was run out of Cleveland and Denver when Tim Tebow was there. So this is really scraping the bottom of the proverbial barrel in Kansas City.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get down to it. To some better news. Let's go ahead and get on to the games of the weekend. Week 5. First of all, we got to, of course, congratulate Drew Brees. Sets the NFL record with a TD pass in his 48th consecutive game. First quarter TD pass to Devery Henderson is what did it. The game was against San Diego on Sunday night, the national audience. Saints win 31-24. Now, I believe it was Marcus Colston who caught 3 touchdown passes in that game. Yet he gets the honor of catching 3 touchdown passes, but he does not get to be the answer to the trivia question.
This is true. It's like the old Wally Pipp and Lou Gehrig trivia question. He'll be surely forgotten within a matter of weeks. It's an impressive record, and what's equally more impressive, and people don't realize this, is the man whose record he broke, Johnny Unitas, really played in an era where passing wasn't as predominant as it is now.
Right.
I heard a fact that there was a game in the 50s when Unitas' streak was going on where he was 2 of 9 against the Steelers, I believe it was, and still managed to make one of those completions into a touchdown pass to keep the streak alive. This isn't like the era of today where you've got the Brees, Rodgers, Stafford, the Manning brothers throwing the ball 40 and 50 times a game.
Yeah.
So while it is impressive, it's just kind of a microcosm of the era we live in the pass-happy NFL.
Exactly. And you know what? I don't know how to say this I'm not putting down Drew Brees, but we look at the records. He broke Dan Marino's record last year, his yardage in a season record. This year he breaks John Unitas' record of, with his 48th straight game with a touchdown pass. But in no way, shape, or form is Drew Brees a better quarterback than Dan Marino or John Unitas. I think that speaks to your point. And again, all you Saints fans out there, I'm not trying to put down your team or Drew Brees or anything, but it's just the changing of the times, the changing of the game. That's just how that goes.
Definitely, and it's, you know, while this is a little more controversial topic due to the PEDs, it's kind of like how everyone went home run happy in the late 1990s in baseball. Kind of a different topic, but it's almost like it's made these records that were once thought to be untouchable falling by the wayside left and right.
Exactly, and in that era of baseball, of course, it's a football show, but that era of baseball, remember, Sammy Sosa broke Roger Maris's record twice and didn't win the home run title either year. Just keep that in perspective.
Yep, people forget that. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, let's go ahead and stay with the Saints. Another team that was kind of high-powered last year, well, they were high-powered, were the Packers. But what's the problem here? The Saints, 13-3 last year. The Packers, 15-1 last year. This year, after 5 games, the Saints 1-4, the Packers 2-3. Talk to me, Mr. Lardieri. Make sense of this for me.
Twofold. Number one, of course, I am a schedule conspiracy theorist, so the better you do one year, the more difficult your schedule gets the next year. However, that theory gets holes poked in it when you look at how the Packers have dropped games to the Seahawks, who were no juggernaut last year, even though the Packers technically won that game, as we discussed. And this week, the Colts, who had the top pick in the NFL draft. Enough said. Number two, in a nutshell, and this applies for both teams, neither team can play a lick of defense. And as we were talking about in the pre-production of tonight's show, the Packers they've got some stalwarts, as you say, on each end of the line, proverbially. Raji on the front. You got Matthews at linebacker, and you've got, even though he's older, Charles Woodson in the secondary. Great observation by you, but the rest of the guys are not picking up the slack, and you can't just rely on one guy at each respective position to do everything. The Saints, their troubles are well documented, with Vilma out for the year and team even more depleted by some of the other suspensions. New defensive coordinator with Spagnuolo, they're just getting picked on left and right. So even though, like, everyone wants to talk about the spread offense in the past, at the end of the day, you've got to play some defense if you want to win in this league, and neither team's doing that right now.
And also, you know, you got to be able to run the ball at some point, and that's going to get really difficult. The Packers, these next few games are really going to be crucial for them, because the Packers, we look at this, now Cedric Benson is out. He's out. In fact, I believe he's done for the year. So the Packers, who were already thin at running back, now they lose Cedric Benson. So it's going to get a whole lot more tougher before it gets any easier for Aaron Rodgers and his boys. Yeah,
and you fantasy footballers out there probably know the name Alex Green. I tried to pick him up. He was already gone. But it doesn't really inspire fear in opposing defenses. James Stark's still banged up, and at this point I'm wondering if the Packers wish they had Ryan Grant, who's now with the Redskins.
Ooh, yeah, exactly. So, you know, speaking of the Redskins, let's go ahead over to RG3, who we're used to him. You know, he plays tough. And last week, though, I think he really got kind of welcomed to the NFL, should we say. Trying to scramble for some extra yardage, winds up getting concussion. Nothing dirty about the hit or anything. It was just good, hard, clean tackling by the Falcons. And RG3, he has been cleared to practice, so for all we know, he is going to play this week against Minnesota. But RG3, he took a tough hit last week.
Yeah, he did, and what's ironic is we were just talking about that in the previous week. Griffin basically carried the Redskins on his back against the Buccaneers scrambling, and I said, you know, how much longer can this go on? Well, it happened that week, and like you said, it was a good, clean, fair hit, but I think Mr. Griffin's going to start thinking twice and maybe either throwing the ball away or scrambling out of bounds. I admire his hustle, his guts, but, you know, in this era of concussions, I think he's got to be a little more careful, and he's gotten dinged.
Exactly, and you know, another guy. Well, we'll get to Andrew Luck also in a minute, who, you know, he outdueled Aaron Rodgers in that game. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit of Andrew Luck. He, of course, the other rookie quarterback who came in this year, but down 21-3 at the half against the great Aaron Rodgers, and the Colts engineer a comeback. One almost for the ages, looking at this is going to go down in Andrew Luck lore when all is said and done. they come roaring back and win this game against the Packers and show a lot of poise shown by the rookie QB.
Definitely, especially in light of the fact that the Colts just found out that week that their head coach, Chuck Pagano, has been stricken with cancer, getting treatment. Bruce Arians took over on an interim basis, so an even more impressive win given that. I give the Colts a lot of credit. Most younger, weaker teams probably would have folded and thrown this game away. And Luck was out there playing like a veteran, rallying the troops, getting good old Reggie Wayne back out of kind of semi-retirement. Everyone remembers Mr. Wayne now. So, yeah, I mean, I've felt all along that Luck's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I know it's early, small sample size, but he's showing flashes of brilliance here, even just 5 weeks into the season.
Definitely, and let's stay on the quarterback theme here. Now, as we know, in this day and age, if things keep going on the way they are, if you want your child to be a great quarterback, he's got to be named Matthew. And we're going to talk Matts right now. So who is the best Matt of all? We've got Matt Ryan over there with Roddy White and Julio Jones in Atlanta. We got Matt Schaub in Houston, and of course he's got Andre Johnson, his big target. And we've got Matt Stafford in Detroit, who's got Calvin Johnson. We don't want to mention Matt Hasselbeck, do we? Is that just a footnote, even though he wears the same number 8 as Matt Schaub? But Matt Hasselbeck is not in this conversation, is he?
I agree on that.
All right, so here you've got Schaub with Andre Johnson. You've got Matt Stafford with Calvin Johnson. Then you got Matt Ryan. So, Matt Ryan, is he the guy, or is it Schaub, or is it Stafford? Talk to me.
As of right now, I think you've got to go with Matt Ryan, and I know we'll see what happens come January because Matty Ice turns to ice when the weather gets cold. But right now, he's improved. The Falcons are on a roll. I think Schaub is an excellent quarterback, doesn't get his due down in Houston. But that being said, the guy was hurt last year in the playoff. Let's see what he could do this year. I mean, unless something catastrophic injury-wise happens to the Texans, I think they should roll into the playoffs. Stafford's kind of struggling this year, and probably going into this season, I would have said Stafford was number one with the way he pretty much carried the Lions on his back down the stretch and getting him in the postseason for the first time in many years. So right now, I think you've got to go with Matty Ice. Remains to be seen. If I were to put money on it and you say who could dethrone Ryan right now, I think Stafford's got the potential to do it, but the problem is his defense is so atrocious. So unless he starts being a two-way player a la Deion Sanders, it could be a long season for his Lions.
All right, so we got Matty Ice at number 1 at this point. So that just goes to show, and Matty Ice is the one guy, he's got Julio Jones and Roddy White there, not one of the Johnson boys. So it just goes to show that you can be number 1 even though if you don't have a big Johnson to rely on. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. I didn't even realize that when I was saying it, but you've proven it true by some geometric theory of some sort.
All right. And, on the downside a little bit before we get into our pick segment, Michael Vick against the Steelers. I mean, he Ernest Bynard across the goal line, fumbled going into the end zone. A big game in Pittsburgh. The Eagles come up short, fumbled, had another. That one was caused by Ryan Starks. I believe it was Lamar Woodley who caused the other fumble, or Lawrence Timmons rather. But Vick still turning the ball over, and the Eagles losing games. Eagles go to 3-2.
Yeah, and essentially Vick's cost his team the games. Let's not slice or dice it any other way. I don't understand how the guy plays mistake-free football against the Giants one week and then manages to cough it up just mere feet from the goal line and putting away the Steelers. If this keeps up, he's going to have to consult Tiki Barber, who once had the fumbling issues. I'm really not sure. It's kind of befuddling. I mean, he's just been a turnover machine this year, and at what point does Andy Reid, in an effort to save his job and the Eagles season, pull the plug on him and go with a younger guy, just for the sheer fact of, here's the ball, don't turn it over, Mr. Foles.
Yep. And I watched Foles play when he was at Arizona, and Foles has a good arm. I like the way that he played when he was in college, and I think he has the the promise to be a good NFL quarterback. Now, one theory I've heard, though, is even if you put Nick Foles in at this point, and there's that the O thing that comes up. Everybody talks about offensive line. Is the Eagles' offensive line truly that bad?
They must be, because I saw Vick get battered in numerous games this year. And going into the season, even in our NFC preview show, we hit on this. I don't even think we thought the line would be this bad. So Vick's having to scramble more. That could be also part of the reason why he's turning the ball over more. But they just seem to be atrocious. It looked like the Arizona Cardinals line last Thursday night against the Rams, just very porous. So I don't know. They're going to have to go find some sort of blind side to protect whoever the quarterback is in Philadelphia. But they just really can't stop anything right now, and that's a big part of the problem.
Okay, so we're about halfway into the show. Shall we get into some picks, or do you have a few more observations from this past week of football?
One more observation I have. At least the Jets showed up on Monday night. I know you and I both had the Texans as our stone cold lock.
Right.
The Jets showed up to play. Again, Sanchez couldn't get the ball in the end zone when he needed to. Some costly turnovers, but kind of surprised that Tebow Mania never materialized. There's no real controversy. They're just not, for whatever reason, taking the reins off of Tebow or trying to have him run the Wildcat as much as he has in previous seasons. So it's kind of a head scratcher with the Jets.
And I think that when you look at head scratchers, though, I think we got to look at the Texans a little bit. Now, granted, the Texans are still perfect. Still 5-0. They're 5-0 on the season, but that Monday night game, and when I look at it, they didn't. They win the game by 6 points, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at that little switch right before the half there, where the Jets are about to go into the end zone. Sanchez throws the pick, and that turns into points at the other end. Without that little 10-point swing, or possibly 10-point swing there, then that's a much closer game, and maybe the Jets even pull off the upset. I was not impressed, really, with how the Texans played this game. They should have. This is a game where, they should have just gone out there and mauled the Jets. The Jets are in all kinds of turmoil, and the Texans go out there and they're rather pedestrian about it. And that's one of the things. That's which kind of prevented me from really calling the Texans an elite team from the beginning of the season. Is I've always questioned, Matt Schaub a little bit, but also just Gary Kubiak and his leadership there with the Texans. They just don't seem to really bear down, and I've seen a couple of games they played this year that were like that.
Definitely, they're almost playing down to the level of their opponent, save for the Denver game where they pretty much manhandled them until the fourth quarter when the Broncos made a little rally. They really haven't been challenged. They're not going to be challenged in their division, and part of me wonders if they're looking ahead to big Sunday night game, which they're not accustomed to, against the Packers down in Houston. Maybe they had one eye on next week. So hard to say, but they better start putting their foot to the pedal. And now with linebacker Brian Cushing done for the year, they really better bear down, especially on defense.
Exactly. So you know what? Let's go ahead and segue into picks of the week. We're going to pick 7 games for you this week. And by the way, I got to let everyone know, I clowned you a little bit last week. We were both 10-10. But Chris Lardieri, when the game is on the line, when the rubber meets the road, when it's all on the line, you prove to be clutch. Chris goes 6-0 last week, so on the season, yours truly is 14-12. Mr. Lardieri is now 16-10 on the season with our pick segment.
Thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Naturally, I had no money on the line, so of course I stepped up to the plate. Kind of did my best Raul Ibanez impression, 2 for 2 with 2 home runs. Except he did it when it counts, and here I am, week 5. Talk to me at the end of the season.
Okay, so let's go ahead and break down our games of the week. Let's start with the Helter Skelters, the Cowboys, against the Ravens. Cowboys going into Baltimore. Cowboys at 2-2. Ravens at 4-1. But Ravens coming off of a rather curious 9-6 victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. T-Sizzle is not going to be back yet. Possibly back in another week or 2.
Yeah, normally I might consider picking the Cowboys, but after that pretty poor performance by the Ravens in Kansas City. I'm going to pick the Ravens. I think they're going to rebound. They'll bounce back. I don't think Harbaugh will let that happen 2 weeks in a row.
All right, and you know what? I don't have a whole lot to say about that either. I'm going with the Ravens, hands down, and I think they come out inspired because of, Harbaugh is one, and also I bet you Ray Lewis got in a few people's ears this week. So I look for the Ravens to come out at home, and they'll take care of business against the Cowboys.
Definitely.
The Lions coming off the bye week. The Lions in the midst of a disappointing season, 1-3 on the year. At Philadelphia to face the 3-2 Eagles. Talk to me.
Another one that could go either way. Given the fact that I think the Eagles are pretty banged up, and using the law of averages, Michael Vick will probably put the ball on the ground or in the Lions' hands at least 2 times on Sunday. I'm going to go with the unconventional pick and take the Lions. I think they regroup after a bye week. Schwartz will have his troops motivated, and I think Stafford can throw on this Eagles team as we've seen other teams do in previous weeks. So I'll go with the unconventional pick and say Detroit gets back on the winning track.
All right. Very good. Perfect, eloquent breakdown of the game. I'll say, I gotta go with you on this because the Lions, they're 1-3, and really, if they lose this game, the season, it's not over, but it's pretty much done, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, especially with the way the Vikings are playing. They could be in the cellar before you know it, looking up.
Exactly. So the Lions have to win this game. You have 2 teams that have played imperfect ball, and the Eagles have gotten a lot of bounces, even though with the amount of turnovers they've suffered this year. They're at 3-2, but I like the Lions to go in there, take care of business against the Eagles, and get back in the win column, and possibly Jim Schwartz can put away his resume for right now. All right, let's go to the next game. Colts. Andrew Luck coming off the big comeback against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Going into New York, the Jets at 2-3, Colts at 2-2. How do you see it?
I'm going to go unconventional here as well. I think the Jets are going to win this game. They've got to have some momentum after playing well on Monday night. I think the Colts are due for a letdown after really having a great win over the Packers, and the schedule's not going to get any easier for the Jets. I believe they play the Patriots next week, so I think they rally. They get a win here that they need, and kind of set the tone going into the middle part of the season. Sanchez seems to play well against the Colts. I know it's a much different team. Their defense isn't quite what it was during the Peyton Manning years, but just pure gut instinct here. And if Sanchez fails, and all else fails, we'll have Tim Tebow playing, and maybe he'll rally the troops.
Okay, well, I think here's where we're going to disagree. In fact, I'm sure of it. I like the maturity that Luck showed in that game against the Packers, and I think that's one of those games that can really – he understood his potential there, and now he knows what he can do. I think going against the Jets this week, we're going to see Andrew Luck with a new level of confidence there, and also the connection that he had with Reggie Wayne during that game. I think the Colts are a confident bunch right now. I still think the Jets are a little shaky, even after they played the Texans somewhat tough on Monday night. But I like the Colts in this game, and I think the Colts are about to turn the corner, and Luck is now truly moving out of the Peyton Manning era into the Andrew Luck era. And I think it's going to be even solidified further this week when they take care of business against the Jets.
Yeah, either way, it should be a good game to watch for what on paper just kind of look like 2 mediocre teams facing off.
All right, so you know what? Now we got another surprise team. We got the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings at 4-1 coming out of nowhere. Christian Ponder coming into his own. Adrian Peterson showing that, he had a knee injury, but he's definitely back. Going against the Redskins. And something I saw in the Redskins this past week was even though RG3 got injured, after he went out and Cousins came in, the Redskins, they did lose the game. However, there was no quit in them. They kept on playing ball even though RG3 wasn't in there. So another team, that's the Redskins, getting their, taking a quarterback in the first round, taking RG3, and it looks like the culture has finally changed there, where they're not just doormats anymore. They're playing some ball there in D.C.
Yeah, they definitely are. And now Mike Shanahan looks like half a genius for drafting Cousins, right? He must have known RG3 was going to get a few concussions, huh? But that being said, I'm picking the Vikings, and this is in no way related to the fact that my wife has relatives in Minnesota. I've become a believer in this team. Ponder, for all his critics, has really played well this year. The defense, kind of unheralded, has really been playing well on that side of the ball. I mean, they all but shut down the 49ers, and they beat them a few weeks back. The X factor for me that leads me to pick the Purple People Eaters is Adrian Peterson. A lot of people may not remember he tore up his knee against the Redskins towards the end of last season, and I think he's going to be a man on a mission on Sunday.
All right, and you know what? I got to go with you here, too, even though I just sang the praises of the Redskins. But I like the way that Minnesota is rolling, too, this year. And for all the reasons you said, Ponder coming into his own, Peterson running like a madman, and the Vikings just really starting to believe in themselves. So I got to go with the Vikings in this game, too.
I like it. I like it.
All right. Well, here's the game I know you want to pick, and the game I know you want to see, and the game I know you wanted to go to, but you're not going to.
You know what, Charles? On a side note, I've got to thank the oil companies here in California for all but solidifying my decision not to go. I probably have to get a home equity loan out just to afford the gas up to San Francisco. So thank you.
All right. So the New York Giants going up to Frisco, a repeat of the NFC Championship game. Giants at the 49ers. Giants at 3-2, Niners at 4-1. And all set for fireworks. Talk to me.
You know, I'm a Giants fan through and through. I bleed blue. I'm picking the 49ers, and here's why. I think ultimately these teams faced off twice last year in two great matches. I think the 49ers defense will be able to stop the Giants offense, and I'm still not entirely sold on the Giants defense right now. They're banged up still in the secondary. They haven't been able to get the pass rush they wanted. The Browns took a quick lead on them last week. I thought I was seeing things. I feel like while the Giants are doing their usual, heading into the middle of the season, smoke and mirrors, they flip the switch when they want. And you're not going to be able to do that in San Francisco against that defense. And finally, I just think Jim Harbaugh is going to have that team motivated, especially in light of the way they lost the NFC Championship game. This is going to be like a playoff game for them, and I don't necessarily know that it will be for the Giants.
Yeah, and definitely the Niners are going to want this game. I think truly they'll want it more than the Giants will. But there's another factor, and that is the Giants, I think, have to put keep the Niners in their place because they might meet them in the playoffs again this year, and so they got to keep that kind of dominance over them. I think that will be maybe the edge that the Giants need to push them through this game. I look for another chapter in the book of Eli, as opposed to the development of Alex Smith, and I'm going to go ahead and take the Giants to win this game. I know they're banged up in the secondary. However, I think the Giants they can get that pass rush together with Jason Pierre-Paul, with Justin Tuck, all those boys up front. I'm looking at them to really bear down and get it going in this game, and I got to take the Giants in what's going to be a fantastic, entertaining matchup. I'll say win, lose, or draw.
Definitely, and even though I picked the team in red, I hope you're right with your prediction. Let's leave it at that.
All right, now, the Green Bay Packers, we talked about them earlier. Problems at running back, problems on defense, and the Packers going into Houston. Packers at 2-3, Texans at 5-0. Talk to me.
I'm going with the Texans. I think they'll bounce back from a pretty poor Monday night effort. Mainly because, as we hit on before, the Packers have no running game. Alex Green doesn't keep me up at night if I'm Wade Phillips drawing up schemes against them. And I think at the end of the day, if the Texans really need to, as we saw on Monday night, they could just pound the ball with Arian Foster at will and just wear out that Packers defense.
And you know what? Let's go ahead and make it unanimous here. I got the Texans also. More balanced team. Even though they were not impressive, as I said, against the Jets. But I really don't see any way the Packers can beat them. And the problem with the Packers defense, Packers will give up 30 points to anybody. That's the real problem with the Packers defense. So I like the Texans to win the game, control the game, and I think they can kind of run at will, control the clock if they need to with Arian Foster, and then Andre Johnson maybe make a few plays downfield. So, yeah, I got the Texans in this game as well. One last game to pick. That is the Monday night tilt. Denver Broncos at 2-3 going into San Diego. San Diego at 3-2. San Diego coming off a little bit of a heartbreaking loss there in New Orleans as their left tackle couldn't even move and just let Rivers get sacked. But talk to me.
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think they bounce back, coming back home, and oddly enough, over the years, they seem to have played Peyton Manning pretty tough. We saw numerous playoff games where the Chargers were able to shut him down in his prime. On top of that, I think I really don't know why North Turner stopped running Ryan Matthews in the second half. I don't think they'll make that mistake again. And I know Phillip Rivers, he's going to be motivated going up against Peyton. So I'm going to go with the Superchargers on Monday night.
San Diego Superchargers. This one is unanimous, folks. I'm going with the Chargers as well. So everybody, if you can get, all the Charger fans down there, I'm sure they'll show up en masse for that big Monday night tilt. But I got the Chargers in this game, and the Broncos at 2-3. There was a lot of hype around the whole Peyton Manning thing this year, but I think that a lot of that has died down, and the Broncos have just they're okay. They're not dominant. They're not bad. They're kind of middle of the road. I think the Chargers have a little bit more, and playing at home, I think that'll be enough to push them over the edge. So I got the Chargers in this game also.
Definitely. And on a side note, we were down in San Diego last weekend visiting my sister-in-law, Jen. She's a big Chargers fan. I have to mention that. And she will be happy when this game is not blacked out on Monday night like the rest of the Bolts fans down there.
Okay. Fantastic. So that's the picks of the week. And then probably, teams that we haven't talked about a lot, the Miami Dolphins and the St. Louis Rams match up this week. We won't pick that game, but you know what? Whoever wins that game will be in a good position, so we'll give them a little bit of love next week on next week's show of football talk here. What do you think, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? Whoever wins this game, like you said, will have a lot of momentum. They could kind of define their season. And I think right now both those teams, and I'm getting ahead of myself, the teams to keep an eye on in 2013. Who knows? One of them could have a halfway decent 7-9 or 8-8 season and set the tone for a breakout year. And I think that's what you're looking at there. Two young quarterbacks and Tannehill and Bradford, and kind of quiet yet underrated defenses that have been playing well the past few weeks.
All right, perfect. Okay, so we're just about out of here. In fact, we're a couple minutes over right now. So, of course, it's an Inside Sports production of Football Talk, but let's go ahead and give Mr. Lardieri the final word here. You can find him on footballnation.com. Any final words there, Chris?
Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Chris L Sports, in addition to posting great shows like the one you've just listened to. I've got random observations on all things NFL. I'll even weigh in on the MLB playoffs if you're interested in that. And I always post my articles there. Be sure to follow me, send me a tweet, tell me you love me, hate me, whatever, as long as you read what I have to say. I appreciate it.
I know you strive to be kind of like Howard Cosell, when back in the day they had a poll about who was your most favorite and least favorite sportscaster, and Howard Cosell won both polls. So what do you say?
Yeah, like they say, negative publicity is better than no publicity.
There you go. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Remember, every Wednesday on Ustream.tv at 8:30 Pacific Time. Myself, Charles E. Smith, Jr., and Chris Lardieri of FootballNation.com. We do this show called Football Talk. This is an Inside Sports production. So everybody, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.